Now, the establishment really does not appreciate free speech, or at least the sort of free speech that threatens its stability. You see, even the so-called free speech defenders, the Jordan Petersons and the Ben Shapiros of this world, who are simultaneously both conservative and free speech, which is kind of an oxymoron in of itself, because if your whole objective is to conserve the status quo, conserve the establishment, then clearly you wouldn't want the sort of free speech that threatens the conservation of such an establishment. This is why it's a contradiction in terms for a right-winger to be truly free speech. Now, there are some who self-describe as right-wing and are libertarians, people like Dave Smith, and people who are not necessarily left or right, like Glenn Greenwald, who are truly free speech. But these are people who are not conservative, who don't self-describe as conservative. The whole objective is not to conserve an establishment. They're not pro-status quo. But those who are the loudest in proclaiming themselves to be pro-free speech aren't pro-free speech, as we can see from the US Senate and House wanting to block the application known as TikTok. You see, TikTok has seen a exponential rise in usage by the younger, Gen Z and millennial crowd, and even higher amongst the younger audience. Because clearly Gen Z is, or rather clearly TikTok is an alternative to the mainstream news and mainstream media, as well as, places like YouTube and other forms of entertainment, because, clearly people have more creativity here. There's also more information, more of a broader and diverse set of, values that can be expressed along these different social media platforms, which the establishment does not like because it prefers uniformity. The only creativity, the only free speech that is allowed is one that is not dissenting or is adversarial to the very structure of the establishment itself. And one such structure is how the establishment is, completely in alliance and the defense of a genocidal state, one that 12 human rights organizations has confirmed is conducting an apartheid state, and the International Criminal Court of Justice has ruled that is plausibly committing a genocide. So clearly this is a state that is problematic, and anyone with a conscience knows this. But the establishment doesn't want that word to spread too far so as to question the very foundation of such a Zionist undertaking, Zionism is just one aspect. There's also colonialism, generally speaking, neocolonialism, and how corporations take over large swathes of the world to maintain its hegemony, as well as, of course, capitalism in of itself, which undermines and underlies a lot of our structures. And in fact, power and capital is very much aligned. And so if any of these are questioned to such a degree that it threatens the future, then clearly they don't want to continue such free speech. And what I'm going to show you right now is a leaked recording from Jonathan Greenblatt, who is the chief executive of the ADL. Now, the ADL was supposed to be a good, or rather, it's supposed to be a pro-civil rights organization. It was the Anti-Defamation League, but has heel turned towards the Apartheid Defense League, because clearly it is very much in support of the Zionist project and doesn't question any of its policies, from apartheid to genocide. So this video I'm going to show you is you could just hear it from his voice, the utter fear that people who are who form a large part of the establishment, who have influence and sway in the establishment, are threatened by the rise of things like TikTok. And of course, he's obviously going to do it, say it, and make his case in propagandist terms. I've not, he calls anyone who's pro-Palestinian pro-Hamas, and I've not heard anyone who is pro-Palestinian openly advocate for Hamas. They merely just support the Palestinian people. So clearly, he's wanting to indoctrinate the audience so as to not question his propagandist narrative. But anyways, I'm going to show you this video, and if you can, please like, comment, and share this video, because the more this is shared, the better it is, and the more people know about it.
But I also want to point out that we have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States of support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And the numbers of young people who think that Hamas's, massacre was justified is shockingly and terrifyingly high. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Taglit, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy toward this, fast. Because again, we've been chasing this left-right divide. It's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation, and the Hamas and their accomplices, the useful idiots in the West, are falling in line in ways that are terrifying. Last thing I'll just say, we saw a dramatic change in the language of the activists here in America on October the 8th. The language of groups that we've long tracked, who've long been problematic, like Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace, they flipped like this and went to Iranian propaganda. The language I could show you from their toolkits, because our analysts are in their groups. We saw this again on October the 8th. It was that fast. The language in their toolkits was all about the Zionist entity and lots of other language that we recognized from Iranian propaganda.